Hey everybody, and welcome to the final part of our mini-series for creating this custom chair. In the previous parts, we went over to how to create the high poly model, how to create the low poly model, how to unwrap this, texture it inside Substance Painter, and now in this final part, we will see how we can export it out for use inside Unreal Engine and prepare it for two different ways of texturing. One being with what we did in Substance Painter, the other one being in texturing this thing inside Unreal. So let's begin. The first thing we're going to do here is what I have here is the model that we started off or ended off in the previous parts. So what I have here is the low poly version, all singled out in 02, 03, 04 LP for the naming convention. So instead of having this, what I want to do here now is just revert what we did previously. Instead of having everything as a separate object, I want to combine them back on, all of them together, as one individual object, like so. If we go ahead and click on the Unwrap UVW, we're going to notice that even though we detached and reattached everything, nothing has been screwed up on the UVW Unwrap, which is exactly what we want to have. We want to have working UVW Unwrap and a chair that's basically as one piece. Now, the next thing that I want to do here is I'm going to open up my material here, and from there I'm going to choose a standard material. So go over here. Instead of a V-Ray, I want to choose a standard material. And the standard material, I want to go ahead and instead of here, I want to have a multi-sub object. Keep the old material submap and set this thing to, well, let's see. We have one material for the back seats, the one for the backrest, and another one for the metal. So we're gonna have to have three different materials. So number of materials 3, and copy this thing down here and down here. So for the first ID, I'm gonna name this material as seats or cushions. Go back, backrest, or instead of backrest, just call it wood. And the third one will be metal. Awesome. And call this material as chair base. And over here we have a material called, well, let's just call it base. This is the material that has been added to our chair by default since we imported this thing out from Substance Painter. And what I want to do here before I do anything else, I want to make sure that the size of this chair is correct, as well as its pivot point. So in order to have that checked, let's find something to reference it with. A good reference for this would be to make a box in here. That's gonna be, let's say, something like this, and give it a size of, let's say, 50 by 50 by 50. Now this is 1/2 meter for the height, and we can see that our chair is either very, very small. If we measure it, we're going to notice that the Z height, or the tallest or the highest point of this chair, is 41 centimeters. That means this chair is very, very small. And since we created this thing by basically not following any reference, but just by hand making it and eyeing it, or winging it, we need to get this chair more into position. So do something realistic. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to select my chair, deselect this thing, or actually select the cube and Alt X. That is going to make it transparent. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to scale my chair until the height here, G, is more or less for the seat at a height of about 1/2 meter. All right, so again, let's go upwards a tiny bit more. Yeah, I think this is okay. So now we have the scale for our chair fixed. We do want to make sure that before we do anything else to it, we do reset the X-form, because at the moment you can see that the absolute local for the scale transform is 286, which is not ideal. When I hit reset X-form and collapse this, convert to enable poly. Again, with all of these changes, what we want to do here is affect the pivot only and center it to the object. And from here, click and drag it to the lowest point of this chair, which would probably be this thing here. Just snap it there. And now, this thing is at the middle of our chair and at the lowest point. So with this thing in mind, what we want to do is just move it to the actual 0, 0, 0 axis point. Now, the reason for doing this is that once we export out, this is an FBX, and we import it into Unreal, what we will notice is that if our pivot isn't centered, we're going to have some issues with rotating our chair and moving it inside Unreal. So I'm going to name this chair base, or I'll basically just call it chair. And let's prep this thing for export. One thing that I might have missed here though is when I was doing all the re-importing is I might have made a bit of a issue with the smoothing groups. As I can see, I have some problems there. Select all of them, hit the clear smoothing groups, and now I'm going to auto smooth them with 10. And let's see how this thing is going to look. Yeah, 210 is a bit too low. So select everything again, give it 20. Make sure everything is smooth on all sides. Again, a bit of a problem. All right, let's go even higher. Back to 40. Hit on auto smooth, and this I think this should give us a smoother result. There you go. No issues with the sides, although we do have a bit of an issue over here. Not a major one, but it's simply going to be an eyesore for me. So what I'm going to do is select both of these, and individually just click on the K and apply a separate smoothing group to those, and that's going to fix that issue. There we go. Everything's fine. For the back side though, I think that the creases here that we have on the sides, we'll need to have smoothing group reapplied to them. Basically what we did when we were modeling the chair, but now for some reason I probably screwed up when I was importing it. I didn't mind the smoothing groups, but again, it's a very small detail. Probably won't even see it in Unreal, but it's nice to have it since we already have it modeled. It would be ridiculous not to reuse that extra bit of detail. All right, very easy to fix. Probably have to do the same thing over there as well. Okay, awesome. Okay, we have that as a smoothing group. Awesome. All right, now we can select our chair, hit export, and now instead of exporting it out as an OBJ, I'm going to export it as an FBX, and I'm going to call this chair. Well, chair singular, and click on save. It's going to give you the options for what you want to export. We do want to export the smoothing groups. Turbo Smooth is fine. Nothing else. We just make sure you have smoothing groups on and click OK. As soon as this thing is exported, now we can export one additional version of it. But for this version, we instead of having this thing with the texture, we're going to use this one, the one that we just created, and apply it to the material. So the first one, the thing that we're going to have to change here is change the IDs. So hold down Control and select everything that needs to have a wooden texture. And from the set ID, click number 2 here. And number 3 is set for the metal. So hold down Control, select those elements, ID number 3, and that's about it. You don't have to change anything else. Just select this thing, export again, export, and call this chair multiples. The multiples in singular is a reference to how many materials we will be using for that chair. Again, not going to change anything, just click OK. All right, so with this done, it's time to go back in Unreal and see how we can get everything together in there. All right, so here we are inside Unreal. This is a very, very basic scene, the one that you have with the starter content. In case you don't know how to start with the starter content, check the previous video that I've created about Unreal and you'll get the basics done. All right, so all I've done is I created a folder called chair creation. So we're gonna put everything we have in here. What I want to do here is first of all, I'm going to find the folder in which I have my FBX export in, and from the singular I'm going to click on it and I'm going to drag it inside over here. As soon as I let go, it's going to give me this FBX import options. Now from here you have some rather important options that we won't be actually using it, but it's good to know. The first thing is auto generate collision. Since we haven't created a custom collision for this, we're going to leave this as an auto generate. And another thing that's kind of important, but I really didn't have enough time in the previous videos, is to create a light map for the UVs. Basically, a light map for the UVs is a UV unwrap on the second UV channel that's going to be used specially for light baking. But since that's a bit of an advanced topic, for now we're just gonna leave this thing ticked on, and I'm gonna go down, make sure I'm not importing materials or textures, and click on import. As soon as this thing is done, we're gonna have this chair singular in here, and I'm gonna do the same thing for the chair multiples in here. So again, I'm not going to change any of the options, only hit on import. So now I have two chairs. So I have the singular and the multiples. What's the main difference between these? The main difference is that when we created them, this one chair, or this one that we have here, had one individual standard texture added to this, while this one had a texture that was a multi-sub object. And that multi-sub object basically had a couple of different IDs to it, and that meant that we had material for the cushions and a material for the wood, which you can see over here. We have different materials, and this one only has one material for the entire thing. So why do we have those two different ones? Well, the one, or the singular one, we want to use the textures that we baked out of Substance Painter. So for this, I'm only going to go ahead and find the folder containing those textures, and I'm going to select them all and drag them in here. So as soon as you drag them in, is going to give you this loading screen. It's going to take just a tiny bit of time because these are 4K textures. But as soon as they're loaded, you won't have any more problems. Also, it just tells you that it sees this one as a normal map, which it is. So I'm going to click OK. And now here's the thing. When you're using textures from Substance Painter inside Unreal, you want to create a material. So right click and create a material and call this M_singular. This is going to be the material that we're going to use for this chair. So click and drag this thing here. And now double click on this material to open it up like so. And click on all of these three textures, drag and drop them in here. Awesome. So put them aside like so. And now simply node them into their respected places. So the base color goes into the base color, the normal goes here, and now we have this compacted texture which has a RGB channels for it. The red channel is the ambient occlusion, the green one is the roughness, and the blue one is the metallic. But here's the thing though, if you save this material like this, only like this, and you hit save, it will compile. It will show you the result in screen, but you're gonna notice a bit of a problem. Everything is too shiny. So this really doesn't look like what we saw inside Substance Painter. So what gives? Why do we have this problem? Well, this problem is due to the fact that we haven't properly set up this texture here. For example, when we are using multi RGB channel map, what we want to do is double click over here where it says in the map. This will give us a set of options that we can choose, but we're not going to be changing any of these. The only thing that we're going to change is this option over here where it says sRGB, and when you hover above it, it says this should be unchecked if using alpha channels individually as masks. So click on this thing. This thing is going to tick it off. Click on save, and once you do this, now you cannot save this asset as it is, because if you try to do it, it's going to give you an error. That error is going to be that this sampler type is not supposed to stay as color, but instead you need to put it down to linear color. So something like this. And now once you hit save, it's going to compile all the changes. And when we take a look back in our screen, now this chair looks exactly like we saw it in Substance Painter. If you come close, you can see even the rivets that we made, all the bolts, nuts. Even if we go below it, like to the place where I told you that you will probably never see it. If for some weird reason you find a reason to have a camera go through it, you will even see those bolts. So we have this thing textured more or less exactly like what we saw inside Substance Painter. So the only difference here between these two is that here we can individually place or whatever materials that we want inside Unreal. So for this, I'm not going to go ahead and manually create these materials because that is going to take quite a bit of time, and that's a bit of a this video is on the bit of the long term as it is. So I'm going to go to the starter content. From here, I'm going to try and pick up some of the materials that are already present here. So let's see if we have a wood walnut polished. All right, let's try some of these. So wood oak, click and drag it in here. Well, actually we want to have this thing to be on this portion here, which is nice. All right, and I want to have a different material for, let's try something like, wow. All right, I basically see nothing interesting here. So I guess something like this, and no. Well, that was a bit of a mishap on my behalf. Apparently there is no leather or cloth material inside Unreal readily available in the starter pack, which sucks. But in any case, you get the idea. The idea is that if you want to control how the textures are going to be put on your object here inside Unreal, what you can do is simply go in, and when you're exporting out your FBX, make sure you have a couple of different IDs. That way you can give it an individual material for each individual piece. In case I needed to have a different material for the back, a different material for the handrest, a different material for this thing, I can have a different material. In this case, in the first one, it's easy because we did all of the work inside Substance Painter. Everything looks just the way that we created it in there. But the problem here is that, well, I don't have the time to create all of these materials in this video. I might actually make another video in which we will take a better look at how to create materials, but not today. So with all that said and done, I hope you guys had fun and you managed to pick up some new skills. If you have any questions, leave them below. I will meet you in the comment section of the video. If you enjoyed this video, please click the like button, and if you're not subscribed, now is a great time to do so. As always, thank you very much for watching, and I will see you all in the next video. Bye bye.